We briefly discussed during last week's show, Sony has officially purchased EVO, the Evolution Championship Series. EVO is a very popular series of fighting game tournaments founded in 1996 with tourneys held around the world on a number of different games from different developers and publishers running on different hardware. However, the acquisition isn't as straightforward or perhaps as weird as we may have once thought. Sony is collaborating with a new entity called RTS that specializes in esports, and the two will pursue this endeavor as a unit. The bigger news, perhaps, apart from how this affects non-Sony platform holders in their games, is that EVO is finally ready to come back with a still online tournament running in August. Tekken 7, Street Fighter 5, Mortal Kombat 11, and Guilty Gear Strive will all be eligible games. As to why Sony was interested, well, this fragment from their PR statement explains it well enough. Quote, "For PlayStation, today's announcement marks an exciting step in our journey to foster the growth of the fighting game community and esports and support competitive gamers widely on our consoles. Fighting games are hugely popular on PlayStation consoles, with gamers logging more than 1.1 billion gameplay hours in 2020 alone," end quote. EVO, founded by brothers Tom and Tony Cannon, gaming community legend Seth Killian, who I love, and Joey Culler, will still be run in part by the Cannon brothers. You may remember that Culler was accused of sexual misconduct and replaced as EVO's CEO in 2020. So this is maybe actually bigger news than we gave it credit for last week, because Sony itself has no specialty in running this, but it seems like they're just the money behind it. And the data that they show is pretty conclusive. 1.1 billion gameplay hours in fighting games on PlayStation 4 in 2020. Chris, this has a lot of effects on lots of things involved in the gaming industry, or the fighting community rather, which we can talk about, but we didn't really give this its proper due last week. So I'm just wondering if you have any expanded thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes, I mean, I don't know if I have more. Fighting games are like so like out of my wheelhouse, so like I guess I just didn't really think about how important EVO was, but I guess if it makes sense to them and they got the data to back it up, then yeah, it's just weird timing, I think, because it seemed so. The timing of this purchase just seemed like a. All right, they bought a bunch of things. What do we buy? It kind of seemed like, and now it's, by the way, it seems that way also now with Microsoft looking over at Discord, like, I don't know.
Yeah, we just talked about incorporating Discord into PlayStation, and that's a fat fucking chance that happens. So,
yeah.
So just not because of Microsoft, because of Sony. So
yeah, probably.
Yeah, it is. Fighting games have been huge on PlayStation forever. My brother always talks about it. There are only a few platforms that are renowned for their fighting games. So obviously Neo Geo was made for it, and had a great series of fighting games. And then you really have PS1, and to a degree Saturn was made for fighting games as well, notoriously. It didn't work out too well. But PlayStation has cultivated a huge fighting game audience that doesn't really exist elsewhere, with the exception of specific games. So obviously you have huge Smash Brothers communities on going back to GameCube all the way through Switch. And then you do have games like Killer Instinct that are Xbox games that are also pretty big, or were pretty big. But Sony does dominate this space. And the 4 EVO games, so Tekken 7 is a Namco game, Street Fighter 5 is Capcom, and so you have a bunch of different, Mortal Kombat 11 obviously is WB, Guilty Gear is Arc Systems, so they are attracting different partners as well. But Dustin, I'm wondering how you think this might affect other partners, because I think Nintendo released a statement saying that they will now assess what they're going to do with Smash Brothers, which is a huge part of EVO, and this could be a really great way, I think, for Sony to kind of get involved and ingratiate yourself a little bit with your partners, invite heavily, make sure you're getting Smash Brothers over there, make sure you're getting Killer Instinct, and making sure you're working with your partners. What do you think?
So I don't know a lot about Nintendo's relationship with EVO, so I'd invite the audience to fill me in here. But to my understanding, Nintendo is kind of like begrudgingly involved with esports and specifically EVO, in the fact that I don't think they've ever really liked the fact that Melee continued to be a big successful thing in EVO. And even though, there was Smash Ultimate was involved at one point, I don't think they like their games viewed in that manner. They don't want them to be seen as highly competitive. They want them to be approachable, and that makes a lot of sense for how Nintendo operates. So to me, this is like, I would not expect any Nintendo games to be at EVO going forward. This is like the excuse that they were looking for. Again,
If not the CEO was almost a good excuse for them too to be like, we don't want to be involved in this shit. Plus all the weird shit that happens in their community through Evo with like, there's a lot of fucked up shit going on in the Smash community all the time.
Yeah. And it's just, they always have been weird. Like I've heard there was something where they have rules that they don't allow people to win cash prizes. So you'll have a guy that wins for Street Fighter and wins, a ton of money. And then someone wins for Smash Brothers and they get like a custom pro controller or something like that. I don't know. I'm a little light on the details. I know that something like that has happened. So yeah, I think they're donezo on this.
Well, Andrew White wrote in on us on Patreon, kind of a follow-up here. He says, hey, CCD, do you think Evo's acquisition means Sony will start to make first-party games with esports in mind? When SOCOM came out, it was rivaling CS 1.6 as a competitive shooter. Let's hope SOCOM is indeed coming back. So I actually thought about this as well. Sony has never really played in the fighting game space. I mean, obviously, back in the day, they were really a proponent of Battle Arena Toshinden, and there were a bunch of third-party games on there. And then, of course, 2012's PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale from Superbot was their one attempt to kind of do a crossover fighter. So people are bringing that up kind of jokingly, but to me, I do think this is a step for them to start expanding. Sony seems to be identifying specific ulterior markets outside of core gaming that they want to stake a flag in. Unfortunately, it's not handheld gaming, as we said, but it is VR gaming. And now we see maybe esports and competitive gaming. And this is something, like you said, Dustin, Nintendo's not paying attention to this. And this is a weakness because I don't give a shit about any of this, by the way. I like Evo, actually, but I don't care about esports. It's not important to me at all. But I know how important it is to lots and lots and lots of people. And so to have Evo and just being like, well, we run this on PlayStation, we don't even have to worry about that anymore, but still being very open to everyone and inviting to partners, I think would be really good. And you know what I thought about too is if they can somehow kind of get Nintendo to sit with them and have a nice relationship with each other, maybe through Evo, could this now sprout finally getting a PlayStation character in Smash Brothers? Like there's different conversations that can be opened because of this now. Get all the partners to the table and really talk about things and maybe get over the frankly 31-year-old drama behind the scenes that exists between these companies still, because it does. And it's bitter as fuck. And Japan, anyway, and anyone who pretends otherwise is not aware. I mean, shit dies hard in Japanese culture and in Japanese business. And the total betrayal by Nintendo of Sony at CES with the Super Nintendo and the PlayStation add-on is fucking stuff of history. That's the only reason PlayStation came out at all. Yeah. Is because of that. A spite. So that's exactly right. It was a spite move. So good stuff. Love it. I love business.
I really hope they don't start focusing too hard on making games with an esports focus, because I find that I see a lot of games now that are developed with like the intention of being an esport, and none of them ever really get to that point. I think probably Overwatch is like the most successful example of something like that, where it's like a lot of games that are currently esports or legacy games that are taken seriously as esports today are esports entirely by accident. Like they didn't intend those games to be esports. They just ended up being competitive because they were fun in the first place. And I feel like that is like a thing that is kind of escaping a lot of devs now. It's like your game has to be fun before it's competitive. Don't try to make it competitive before it's fun. Like, please don't let this, like, I hate this attitude.
It's like a cart before the horse situation. I totally agree with you. Like, you can aspire to something, but to assume, it's dangerous to assume that your game is going to live or die by something that, like, like Overwatch has like literal professional leagues, like that you're going to, so I agree with you, because it's cool for Sony to say like, well, we have games like Predator Hunting Grounds, right? We might have a SOCOM game coming out, or Killzone or Resistance might come back, and maybe we can foster something here. They've already fostered this environment with Call of Duty and with Activision. I mean, we had noted last week with Activision Blizzard's esports related layoffs that this would affect Sony pretty majorly, because Call of Duty League is run on PlayStation. So they're interested, they're in. So the Evo stuff kind of makes sense when you line it up like that, but we'll see how it all does. And I'm most intrigued to see, it's not going to be hard to get Arc System Works and people like that to do your tournament. I really want to see how Microsoft and Nintendo play.